Hello, welcome to Shad Life. Well, I do have the stem on my Spectral 125 and you can kind of see it on there. It definitely looks odd. It actually looks more deceiving than it actually is. It looks like the bars are way jacked up super high, but they're actually not hardly any higher than the bars I had on here. The bars I had on here were 35mm rise, so I'm actually only about 5 to 10 millimeters taller in this setup, and the reason I'm going to go with that is I don't want to cut my fork, at least not yet, until I know I have 4 spacers here. I want to make sure this is something I actually like, so I'll just deal with a little bit more rise. So it's time to go ride this bad boy. Okay, here we go. I'm at Theodore Worth and I have the stem on my bike. I did pedal around the parking lot and popped a few wheelies and did a manual, and the front end comes up a lot easier. I kind of expected that, but it is like it turned this bike into a manual machine where it was harder to manual before. Now it's like feels almost like a BMX bike, which I certainly like that feel, but it'll be interesting to see what that's like out on the trail. There might be some disadvantages to that, so yeah, let's get started. Okay, I'm gonna ride the north loop first and this dump loop. If you follow my channel, you've seen me go through here many times. And this is good technical stuff. To test the stem out on. I can already tell that for a section like this, I actually really like it. Wow. It actually makes the bike feel way more alive. Wow. I didn't think it was going to be such a huge difference. Popping off that little root was like just second nature. Didn't have to pull very hard or anything. I'm very curious to know how this rock feels. Oh, oh my gosh. So coming up is about the tightest section in all of Theo. So this is a good indicator. And then some tack. Wow, definitely gotta be on my toes because I'm not entirely used to this thing yet. But this bike, which isn't necessarily set up for tighter trails, definitely feels like it doesn't mind tighter trails with this stem on it. It's like super easy to just aim in the corners, but that does mean that it's a little bit more twitchy maybe. Oh, we'll see it when I get up to some faster stuff later on in this ride. So this is the part I really want to test. It's the steep bridge up here, because it's like How does steep stuff feel? Well, we're about to find out. Sweet piece of cake. Wow, this actually makes a huge difference going through those rocks like that. Wow. Now I think I can see why downhillers might like this setup. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm finding tight switchback climbs to be a little challenging. I'll explain that in a minute when I catch my breath after this climb. Whew. Tight switchback. Oh, that's weird. Climbing tech. Okay. Kind of figured that would be. Whew. Alright, let me catch my breath. Okay, I know this video is going to get a little long, but I like to provide all the information I can when I do these kind of videos, rather than try to cram a whole bunch of information in a short, like 9 or 10 minute segment like most YouTubers do. But that trail that I just rode is the new expert section at Theodore. It has a little bit of everything, so it really brought out the true character of the stem. I was actually quite surprised. I did not think that was going to happen. So first, pitching down and going over those rocks, absolutely amazing. Like a superior amount of control. Ideally now, especially if you're out west, you're riding a lot faster and you're riding rocky chunk like that, I think you would want a little bit longer reach if you were to run a stem like this, to get that wheel out there more, get your reach and body more centered. Because right now I'm probably a little bit too much rear bias, which makes sense. 437 millimeter chainstay length on this bike, and with this tall stem, it definitely shifts me back to be more rear wheel bias, which is why it gives me that feeling of being able to manual on it and pop up the front end really easy, which is awesome. But where we see the weakness in that is on those tight climbing switchbacks, and even just climbing this little rocky section. This is all a climb. Don't know if you can tell from here, but it's a climb, not super steep, but steep enough. And what happens is a tendency is on those switchback climbs, my front wheel literally wanted to come off the ground because I'm making that tight turn and pedaling hard to get around the turn, and it was almost like my bike wanted to like kind of plow forward like this on the tire. It didn't want to grab and turn. So yeah, I kind of had to lean and pivot the bike almost trials rider style to do that. I was seated and pedaling in those switchback turns. The other thing, and again, this is the weakness of not having a long enough reach, is the handlebar would get caught up in my leg because I'm making a really tight turn with the bar. For most of the ride, it doesn't matter because my turning is mostly leaning. You don't turn the bars that much. But on a tight switchback turn, a slow speed turn, you turn the bars more and you kind of run out of room with your leg. Again, yes, putting a shorter stem on brought the bars back quite a bit more. If the front end was longer, that wouldn't be an issue. It'd actually be almost exactly the same as how my bike was before I put the stem on it. So that is interesting. Tight switchback was definitely like an eye-opener of, oh yeah, you know, steeper climbs or technical climbs, things like that. This particular setup is going to give you problems and make it more challenging. Granted, now that I know that, I can try to shift my body weight and things like that, stand up, whatever, right? But you know, ideally you want a bike where you don't want to have to, like, you know, manage keeping the front end down. We'll see what this is like coming up here soon when I get into the big swooping berms over in the southwest loop, and see if it's hard to keep front end or traction on the front wheel as I rip through those berms, because that's another thing you want to be aware of. They are a little bit downhill though, so this might actually be okay. We'll see. All right, here's the big berms. Oh, I actually really like this for these berms. Okay, so I'm entering probably the fastest section in all of Theater. Oh, wow. Yeah, some jumps. Oh yeah. Oh, this stem is beautiful in this section. Oh, I love it. Holy crap. And I gotta learn I gotta learn to just really lean the bike in the turns. For some reason my brain isn't thinking to do that, which is weird. Just getting used to the bars. It's like maybe I'm thinking turn the bars rather than lean the bike. Who knows? But that section was absolutely dialed with these handlebars. Stem certainly makes manualing things way easier, like that. There it is. Pretty straightforward. I have a lot of thoughts. I'm gonna try to just keep this short because I'll just get into babble fest, right? I really like this stem. There is something here. It may not be perfect setup right now, but it's really close and I really like it. And these handlebars, I just got some cheap bars that a bike shop had in 31/8 clamp, because that's what this stem is. And they're not even like the ideal bar, ideal sweep width and any of that for me. So very impressed with what's going on here. Is it an XC Racer stem? Obviously not. XC Racers like their bars super low, and I don't even understand why. I feel like they just do it strictly for the steep climbs, but it like is bad for everything else. One thing I'm going to talk about that I'm noticing, which is a huge deal actually, especially if you're an older rider, is this actually is a lot less strain on my back. My lower back is loving this stem. It's way less effort to pull up the front end, control the bike, things like that. I'm not as lean forward and so on. So it is a lot less strain on my lower back, my shoulders, all of that stuff, because I feel like, especially when doing more aggressive stuff, popping the bike, jumping, all that stuff, the bike just does what I want it to do. I don't have to pull extra hard on the front end to get it to do what I want it to do, and things like that. So really liking it. Definitely on the steeper climbs, and as I mentioned, on kind of the steep, tight switchbacks, it's doable. It's just a little tricky. So yeah, really liking it. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take this to Taft Bike Park and do some jumps on it, but I decided I'm gonna do that in a separate video, so I'll just link that video down in the comments. I'm gonna just go there right now today, but I feel like if I tag it onto this video, it'll just make this video super long, and I want to grab a bite to eat and things like that. But I'm gonna go straight over to Taft from here and do a separate video on how this rides on the jumps. I have a feeling I'm gonna like it. just a hunch that I have. But there is definitely something to this. The bike industry needs to take note of this, and you know, especially as bikes get longer, slacker, things like this, they need to start thinking of stems like this to kind of compensate for that and get the rider in a more ideal position. I didn't even have problems cornering, honestly. I just shifted my hips a little bit more forward and nailed the turns perfectly, leaned the bike. And to me, what was going on in my mind, I haven't ridden a lot of motocross. I've only ridden a motocross bike a couple of times, but it's enough for me to understand that that's more the feel that I felt like I was doing. Is like motocross, you get your weight forward on the front of the seat or up near the tank, the gas tank, and that's where you want your weight to be. So if you think of just shifting your hips forward and being a little more forward, it just makes sense. You don't even need to hinge and lean forward with your upper body. You just need to shift your hips forward and still stay relatively upright. And I was able to rail corners, and there was one corner where I did that a little even too much, and I felt the back end come loose because I had plenty of weight on the front end and not enough on the back end. So that's a sign that it doesn't take that much to get that front wheel weighted in the corners. So I was actually quite surprised that it was that easy. So there you have it. Definitely check the link to me riding Taft if you want to hear about how this bike jumps with this stem on it. Yeah, please like and subscribe.